Hi, I'm Luminousz Star. Welcome to my channel. All of you who are current subscribers, thank you so much for your subscription. Thank you for motivating me to keep this channel, Luminousz Star, active. All of you who are visiting for the first time, welcome to Luminousz Star, and why don't you hit that subscription button below and become part of the Star family. Today's video is going to be a little bit controversial for some viewers, and some images as well as information may also be a little bit disturbing. So please mind that disclaimer in the description box below. Today's video is about how some narcissists have an extreme form of narcissism and how that may be linked to some of them being prone to violence. So this is what I'm going to be talking to you about today. Again, mind that description box below for the disclaimer. I'm going to be reading something for you. The links are below to what I'm going to be sharing with you. Persons committing murder and other forms of violent crime are likely to exhibit a personality disorder of one type or another. Essentially, any personality disorder can be associated with violent crime, with the possible exception of avoidant personality disorder. This includes those described in the DSM, as well as other disorders such as sadistic personality disorder and psychopathy. Pause. I want to go ahead and point out that this is from 2007. In the DSM-5, I want to point out that narcissistic personality disorder was almost removed from the DSM because there was question of the validity of narcissistic personality disorder being a mental illness. While admixtures of traits from several disorders are common among violent offenders, certain ones are likely to be the main disorder: antisocial personality disorder, psychopathy, sadistic personality disorder, paranoid personality disorder, and narcissistic personality disorder. Instrumental as opposed to impulsive spousal murders are strongly associated with narcissistic personality disorder. Men committing serial sexual homicide usually show psychopathy and sadistic personality disorder. Half these men also show schizoid personality disorder. Mass murderers usually show strong paranoid traits with a focus on murder. Clinical examples drawn from the crime literature and from the author's personal interviews reflect 14 varieties of personality disorder. Animal torture before adulthood is an important predictor. Wow. Animal torture before adulthood is an important predictor of future violence, including sadistic crime. Whereas many antisocial persons are eventually capable of rehabilitation, this is rarely the case with psychopathic or sadistic persons. Wow. Suggestions for future research are offered. And I just read you the abstract. Please check out the link in the description box below if you'd like to read the entire article. This is Michael H. Stone, Columbia College of Physicians and Surgeons, New York. So I just read you the abstract there. Oh, there's just one more thing I wanted to read to you all that I really thought was very interesting. Again, the link is below. I want to read another article from the Sydney Morning Herald. This is from Australia, but still I think this article is very interesting. And again, you're going to find the links below for all of these articles. Despite first being identified as a personality disorder in 1980, court records show that narcissistic personality disorder and narcissistic behavior has only begun to regularly appear as a mitigating factor in Australia criminal trials in the past 5 years. This is from the Sydney, this is from the Sydney Morning Herald. This is dated 2015. So let me just read this one paragraph here that I thought it really stood out to me. Okay, so here's a paragraph that really stood out to me, and I'll just go ahead and share this with you, and then we'll get into the video. Psychologist Therese Berry said a personality disorder such as NPD was a mental disorder, but not a mental illness. Personality disorders tend to be lifelong and are deeply ingrained ways for a person to operate in the world. There are really no effective treatments for narcissistic personality disorder, unlike mental illness such as depression or anxiety, for example, which can be treated effectively. Okay, so I just wanted to read that part And please check the description box below for further details to today's video. Also, if you want to read any of these articles, please go ahead and you can see those links below. I'm Luminousz Star. Let's get started with today's video. Hi, this is Luminousz Star. Welcome to the channel. Everyone who is a current subscriber, thank you so much for your subscription. Thank you for motivating me and inspiring me to keep Luminousz Star channel active. Everyone who is visiting for the first time, welcome to Luminousz Star. Join the Star family by hitting that subscription button below. We would love to have you join our family. Today's video is psychopathy, the opposite side of the same narcissistic spectrum. Please like and share this video. Also below, you will find the description box where you will find more details such as the references and resources to this video. Topics of discussion: a comparison of characteristics of narcissists and psychopaths. Narcissists do not tend to be psychopaths. Power, desire, and fulfillment is everything to the psychopath. Signals that capture the attention of psychopaths. Last topic: narcissists, psychopaths, and how each may be prone to violence. First point: there are similar traits that narcissists and psychopaths share. However, not all narcissists are psychopaths. Every psychopath is one who has a narcissistic personality disorder. What's interesting here is that not every person who is a psychopath, not every person who has a narcissistic personality is a psychopath. However, every psychopath does have a narcissistic personality disorder. Now, that's according to research and studies that have been done. Traits of psychopaths and narcissists. Psychopaths, they tend to be aggressive, impulsive. They have mild anxiety, extreme risk takers. They tend to be inconsistent. They bore easily. They care less about the opinions of others. Narcissists, vindictive, exploitive. They tend to be very seductive. They play the antagonist, and they're very manipulative. They have fragile egos, and they lack remorse. Okay, so now that we're looking at the traits, or some of the traits of narcissists and psychopaths, there are some similarities, but there are some slight differences as well. For instance, the psychopath, they tend to care less about the opinions of others, whereas the narcissist tends to care a lot about the opinions of others. The narcissist and the psychopath, what they do have in common is that they tend to lack empathy. That's what they tend to have in common. Another difference is that the psychopath tends to have mild anxiety, whereas narcissists tend to have more anxiety. Okay, so psychopaths and narcissists, there are just some of your similarities and there are some of your differences there. So I just wanted to kind of point out one of each. The other thing I want to point out that's different from psychopaths and narcissists is that the narcissist does not have any issue with drawing a lot of people to him or her or being around a lot of people. They overly depend upon others for source supply. Unlike the psychopath tends to be a loner and does not mind it being that way. They tend to have very little tolerance for others. The narcissists, they tend to tolerate others in order to get the source supply, whereas the psychopath does not have that type of tolerance. Okay, let's move forward. There are many individuals with personality disorders who are prone to acts of violence due to affect regulation and impulse control. Those who have issues with emotional regulation, paranoia, antisocial behavior, and narcissistic personality can become violent more easily than others. Those who are psychopaths, they tend to be prone to acts of violence. One of the things that influences that is a lack of emotional regulation. Now, that's something that they have in common with a narcissist. Like the narcissist, not to be able to emotionally regulate. This is something, again, they have in common with the narcissist. When it comes to impulse control, and you combine that with the lack of emotional regulation, the psychopath tends to be prone to violence. This is due to actual studies that have been done. You can find the link in the description box below to those studies. So psychopaths who are paranoid, antisocial, and they have narcissistic personality, and when you combine that with their lack of being able to emotionally regulate, well, that's probably a recipe for that person becoming violent. And sometimes it's very unpredictable when they will become violent. Again, we're speaking about the psychopaths. Psychopaths have narcissistic personality, therefore tend to have a high intolerance to frustration and anger due to possibly being treated less than expected by others. So psychopaths, like narcissists, don't take rejection very well. If the psychopath is perceived as being rejected or treated less than others, or treated in a way that they did not expect to be treated, in other words, the psychopath likes to be treated special, just like the narcissist. When it comes to the psychopath, they have a very high intolerance to frustration and anger. So unlike the narcissist, the psychopath tends to go from 0 to 100 a little bit more easily. Now, I'm not saying that the narcissist doesn't do this sometimes. We're talking about the psychopath here. The psychopath tends to go from 0 to 100 a little bit easier when they think that they have been rejected than the narcissist. The other thing I want to point out is that according to research, there are a few narcissists out there who have psychopathic tendencies. Psychopaths very often use avoidance strategies such as substance abuse and or dissociation to deal with intense, unpleasant emotions like anger. It is possible with this cocktail of poor defense mechanisms and alcohol and drug consumption that acts of violence can follow. That's pretty self-explanatory. Let's move forward. Signals that attract psychopaths and narcissists. Okay, if a person is a high achiever, they may attract a psychopath and or a narcissist. If they're very competitive, if the person has financial stability, the narcissist and the psychopath may zero in on that person. If that person shows signs of depression, anxiety, and trauma, the narcissist and the psychopath may zero in on that person. If that person has low boundaries or they don't practice personal boundaries, that's an opening for a psychopath or a narcissist to come into his or her life. If this person shows that they are loyal, the narcissist and the psychopath finds that to be appealing. If the person shows signs that they are trustworthy, this is another thing that can attract the psychopath to him or her, as well as the narcissist. One of the things that sometimes confuses people is if the psychopath is attracted to somebody, why would they be attracted to a person that on the outside seems like they would be hard to break? Well, we're talking about the mind of a psychopath. According to research and according to even some interviews of psychopaths, psychopaths have repeatedly testified that they find people attractive who seems very highly intelligent, competitive, have financial stability, and a person who seems untouchable or unbreakable. So the psychopath finds that person a challenge. So they tend to go after people that seem to be untouchable, unbreakable. Whereas with the narcissist, they tend to look for people who show more signs of weaknesses. The narcissist tends to zero in on people for source supply who show signs of a weak defense, such as trauma, anxiety, and depression. Yet, at the same time, they like it when the source supply has financial stability because that's more supply for him or her. The narcissist also likes to see that people are competitive and they're high achievers. In other words, they look pretty good on paper. They may be a person who has a college degree. They may have a great career. They may have a 6-figure or higher income. They may be rich or wealthy. The narcissist likes to see people who are tough, but on the inside, they're quite soft, whereas the narcissist can take advantage of him or her. The psychopath finds people very appealing that seem to be very tough, and they are unbreakable. They are untouchable. They don't really care about the weaknesses of the person. The psychopaths loves the challenge. They get the adrenaline rush of going after somebody that most people would probably say, oh, they're too tough to break. So as we can see, the narcissist and the psychopath, they have some similarities when it comes down who they like to prey upon or who they find, I guess, prime source supply. The narcissist and the psychopath, they usually like a mixture of weaknesses and strengths in their source supply or their prey or their targets. The narcissist usually likes to see right from the beginning signs of weaknesses, whereas the psychopath tends to really not care about that. They like the challenge of going after somebody that seems to be very tough to break. Narcissists tend to turn away from people like that. Tool number 1, beware of anyone who obsessively focuses upon your weaknesses. So if you're around somebody who seems to only be interested in your weaknesses and they like to point that out, beware. Because more than likely, they are a narcissist, they're a cluster B personality, or they are a psychopath. Tool number 2, avoid sharing very intimate information about yourself and your life to someone who does not prove to be trustworthy. There are some people out here that you can share some information with them and it never would go anywhere else. However, there are other people out here who have a predatory nature and they will use everything against you. So avoid sharing intimate information about yourself and your life to someone, whereas you're getting that vibe that this person is not to be trusted. Tool number 3, take time out to do shadow work. Knowing your own weaknesses is the best defense against those who have a predatory nature, such as the narcissist, cluster B personality, and psychopath. So while these people are out on the prowl, they're looking for weaknesses. However, I pointed out with the psychopath, they tend to go after somebody that on the surface looks like they are just untouchable. They're unbreakable. Psychopaths, unlike the narcissists, find that very appealing right from the start. Narcissists tend to like to see the weaknesses from the start. The narcissist would be less inclined to see somebody as source supply who has a strong defense right from the start. Whereas the psychopath will go right in on that person. They find them more appealing because they like the adrenaline rush and they like the challenge of maybe not being able to break that person. But the psychopath, again, they think that they have everything it takes to break that person down like nobody else can. References and resources. You can find these references and resources in the description box below. I'm Luminousz Star. I want to thank everybody for your time. Stay tuned for more videos.
Our home, incubator of life, through our lines.